Hello, everybody. Welcome to the In-Between Art and Artist panel discussion. My name is Jennifer Gibson. I'm the Director-Curator of Gallery 1CO3, which is the campus art gallery of the University of Winnipeg. And before we get started, I'd like to give a land acknowledgement. So I do want to acknowledge and give gratitude for the land where we are living and working here. We are on Treaty 1 territory, which is the heartland of the Red River Métis, the ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, Anish-Innu, Dakota Oyate, and Denisoonlene. And also to acknowledge, of course, that our water is sourced from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation. So today's event is programmed as part of Laura Lewis's exhibition, The In-Between, which has been on view at Gallery 1CO3 for the past 2 months. Laura's larger-than-life paintings of her queer artist friends explore psychosexuality, gender, vulnerability, melancholy, and identity. Through her exhibition, the gallery is given over to multiple, nuanced expressions of queerness, asserting gender performativity and in-betweenness. We're so happy to have Laura and several of her subject collaborators here with us today to discuss all of their own creative work. Now, on behalf of Gallery 1CO3, I wish to thank the Manitoba Arts Council for financial assistance towards our 2024-25 programming season. And I want to express my gratitude to Dr. Sharanpal Ruprai and the Department of Women's and Gender Studies at the University of Winnipeg as well for supporting today's event. Couple of notes. The discussion is being recorded thanks to the university's Media Services Department. And we do anticipate publishing the recording to Gallery 1CO3's YouTube playlist within the next week or so. There is a gender-neutral washroom at the back of the room, and then there are also additional washrooms just outside down the hall to your left and right of this room. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Sharanpal Ruprai, our moderator. Dr. Ruprai is chair of the Women's and Gender Studies Department at the University of Winnipeg, where she is an associate professor. An award-winning writer of poetry and prose, Dr. Ruprai's teaching and research interests include Indigenous and critical race feminism, religious and cultural studies, and artistic practice. Specifically, her work explores the intersection of religion, gender, violence, and identity within the context of the Canadian South Asian women's experience. So I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Ruprai, who will say a few words, and you'll get to meet all of the artists today. So thank you, Dr. Ruprai.
Oh, thank you. Look at this fancy mic. I have to be careful because this is being recorded. I'm going to put this here. Hopefully that works. No, I'm just going to. There we go. Great. Can you hear? Yes? Hear me? Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And I would like to thank my class, the Critical Race and Indigenous Feminism class. Hello, thank you for coming. You had no choice. But you all came back, so that's good right after break. Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you, everyone. And thank you to all the collaborators here on this panel. Absolutely fantastic. I have to say, I walk around this university trying to get 10,000 steps, but I also walk around the university looking at things, and it has been nothing but queer joy walking through the gallery in the last couple of months. Since the end of September, since the exhibit was unveiled. And I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I love seeing everyone's reactions to the paintings, just the scale of them. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But I love all the color, the richness of the paintings, absolutely joyful. And we need some joy on a daily basis. So thank you, everyone, for coming. I have questions, sort of guiding questions that I've shared with everyone here. But before we do that, I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves. And I've asked you to, name, pronoun, and then to situate your own art practice, because all of you here are artists. And you have contributed to the art scene here in Winnipeg and beyond. And so I'd like you to sort of think about your art practice and then end with how you know Laura, because you're all friends. So I'd like you to end with that if you can. So I think Christina's going to start us off.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Christina. You can use she or her or they them pronouns for me. And how we first met Laura?
Yes, but
Yeah.
before that, your own art practice.
Okay. Okay, so I'm a predominantly lens-based artist. So I do photography and film, but I also do publishing and writing. And a lot of my work grapples with queer diasporic aesthetics and what it means to be a first-gen daughter from the Lebanese diaspora. And is that it for now, or are we doing the Laura question? I missed that. My bad. Okay.
Ready for it.
Laura. We met at Ace Arts, and we were both working there, and Laura was instantly vibrant, and she was very complimentary towards me as well because I had just been involved with the Not My Stellas campaign, and so I instantly felt a sense of camaraderie from her.
Hi there. My name is Jessie Jannuska. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a Winnipeg-based Indigenous visual artist and art workshop facilitator. I'm mixed Dakota Ojibwe and settler. My spirit name is Shatongskaskawakawinya, meaning Holy White Wolf Woman in Dakota. My family's from Chinupawakpa, Dakota Nation near Virden, Manitoba. My art practice explores my Indigenous culture and spirituality through a cathartic lens, primarily through mixed media, really meticulous portraiture, and a lot of beadwork. I met Laura through the FMP program at MAWA, the Foundation Mentorship Program. And we had the same mentor, Lisa Wood, who's amazing. And then when that mentorship ended and we were the 2019-2020 year, the group of mentees formed the Winnipeg Pantsuit Collective. So since then we've been exhibiting and meeting together, and we have a show on right now at Ace Art. But I've just really enjoyed getting to know Laura better, and it's also just having the support and being able to lift each other up, and not seeing ourselves as competition, but showing love to one another. And when we are successful, just being like, I'm so proud of you. Like, I can't wait until you win the Sobey Award.
Right back at you. We're gonna skip Laura and go. Yeah.
Hi everyone. My name is Mahlet Cuff. My pronouns are they and she. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, also curator, writer, and DJ. And my practice has kind of shifted over the last while. It was really based on relationship building, which it still is to a certain degree, but I've been looking more at archival practices and looking at the archives as a way to reinvent new images. And my relationship to Laura, I met Laura through Shanila, who's also involved in the exhibition. And when I actually had done the photo shoot, Malaikah was also helping at the time too. And that photo shoot, I just felt very cared for and very, I could see myself better and understand my body and understand the masculine, also feminine. And that day I felt so held and so, cared for. So it's been really amazing to see the images and how they're so large and just how I'm able to look inward to myself. So I'm really grateful to know Laura and be friends and get to be a part of this. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Malaikah. Pronouns are she, her. My practice is mostly performance-based. I tend to have a practice that I actually do not like the ability for it to exist after it's done. Finding photos to show my work was extremely hard because I specifically don't take photos of things. It's kind of if you're there, if you know, if you didn't, loupé. But I work a lot with the idea of relational aesthetics and the kind of sacred space that you can build amongst people doing something together. So things like DJing has been part of that, but also hosting themed dinner parties, go-go dancing. There's lots of different ways of just creating an environment it kind of spreads out from there. And Laura and I met, wow, okay, like well over a decade ago. It was like you were still in art school. I don't even think I considered myself an artist at the time, but we just kind of kept overlapping and kept like connecting on a really deep level. We both had a certain feminine rage that not everyone is particularly embracing of, and I just loved that about her. Yeah, anything else I need to, I think that's everything. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Hello? Okay. Is that good? All right. So yeah, I'm Julian. I use he, they pronouns. I'm also Deb, the beautiful drag queen from the painting. Deb uses she, her pronouns if you see me, just, she, her. Yeah, so I'm an interdisciplinary artist, writer, and drag performer. As an interdisciplinary artist, I face a lot of different mediums, and I'm really more about putting my concept first and letting the medium support it best. Like, so if I'll just choose a medium that I think carries the idea the way I want it to. So, yeah, all over the place. But that being said, like generally I work in themes of like failure, grief, play, queerness, and a lot of like personal and public boundaries and pushing those. And yeah, I'm just coming up and getting my head above the water again. And I'm really excited to, get back into my practice. And as far as how I know Laura and I have known each other for a pretty long time, probably like about a decade as well. And yeah, Laura and I went to art school together, and we had many very late nights in the art barn. It was, it was usually just the two of us or the four of the other people who stayed super late as well. Anyways, it was always nice, and Laura was great company, and of course we just naturally got to know each other more and more, and yeah, it's been a great friendship. So and I'm so excited and proud, and it's amazing to see where Laura is going with everything and to have been part of this. So yeah, I think I'll conclude what I'm saying about myself. Thanks.
And last but not least,
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Laura Lewis. My pronouns are she, her. And yeah, my practice is centered in large-scale figurative oil painting, as we've been kind of discussing. I did not realize the how do I know Laura question would be showering me in compliments, but thank you guys so much. Oh my gosh, I'm a little overwhelmed with joy right now. I love you guys all so much, and thank you for being here today and for participating as collaborators and being a part of my practice. My practice would not be able to exist without you, so I'm really, truly grateful and humbled by your participation, and particularly your responses and your efforts that have been put into that. It's been, just so humbling and truly profound to read them, so thank you all, and thank you all for being here today. Oh my gosh, we're gonna get mushy eventually here, I think, so. And yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer and Sharanpal as well, for facilitating today, and Jennifer for everything you've done so far. So I'm really excited to chat today about the in-between.
Oh, yes, the in-between. I'm going to take this mic. Okay. In looking at these paintings, the scale of these paintings, there's a photograph right behind there that's a looping through. They're beautiful, and they're large, and they take up so much space on the wall. And I've heard a couple of you say, like, oh, I didn't realize how large that painting was going to be. I knew that she was painting, but I didn't realize I was going to be half the wall. And I think Mahlet, you had said that you'd walked into a room and you didn't realize that it was going to be that large and that big of a scale. How has the scale of this project impacted your own art practice? Right? There's something quite beautiful about all of those sort of interconnections. So I wonder who would like to start. Yes.
I can start. Most of my pieces tend to be focused around me. And so I don't get to actually perceive scale of what I'm doing because it is just like my body moving, and I can kind of stay within my body to like feel that. And so this was very interesting because it felt like as I was walking in, I was like, oh, my body is the limit, but coming from the outside in, if that makes sense, as opposed to like finding the boundaries of my body from my practice that's working outwards and kind of ends where my hand extends, ends where this felt kind of the opposite of being like, oh, I'm here and I can kind of sense the borders and boundaries of my body based off of how much is coming inwards from the size of the paintings. Like just being able to kind of be immersed in it. These are always, large-scale paintings like this are always things I've loved. When I'm going to museums, I like to be able to get as close as possible and kind of tune out the world, and then be able to just like be immersed in the painting. But the scale, but also the color, I think, is another thing too, where it's very vivid, it's very alive, like you feel like you're in the painting. And so it's just been interesting to kind of see that and be like, oh, how do I then have that same feeling that I enjoy, but while having my practice still be centered around me? Like, how do I make myself big? Like, do you know what I mean, if that makes sense? Just to kind of be like, oh, I would like to like kind of wrap myself around my own work in the same way that these paintings seem to do when I'm taking them in. But yeah.
I can go next. Kind of similar but different at the same time, where my arts practice has been really decentering myself. Like in the photograph there, you'll see an individual named like Lorraine, and that was a series from like a while ago, and I've always looked to other people to kind of figure out where they are coming from in their own identity or like their own background. And even still within filmmaking, I'm looking at other people and like through archival things, so I've oftentimes been like avoiding me in a way. But I think with these paintings and like seeing myself in this different type of way is like forced me to look at myself and try to center myself in my practice, or even to center myself in my life. And it's just been kind of, of transfer myself to look inward and what does that actually mean as like a Black queer person. And also with the colors of like this painting of me, it's I look very hard and very like intense, but with the softness of like the colors, it kind of adds this other balance. So it's kind of been able for me to kind of think about myself in multitudes and not only see myself as one thing. And I think that also goes along to my practice, which is expansive and always ever growing. So the scale for me, even going to your studio and seeing it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty big. And then going to the gallery, I'm like, oh my God, that's a huge image of me and it's staring right at me. And how does that make me feel? And like I remember being a bit uncomfortable, but then like trying to figure out, why do I feel so uncomfortable with this large image of myself? And it's because it's just a different version of me, but still me at the same time. So it's been, funny how to apply it to my arts practice as well.
I think I'll go next. I think, the large scale and just has really helped me. It feels like a very transformative moment of me becoming more confident in myself and confident in my plus-size Indigenous body, and just helped with self-respect and learning more self-care. And then that just all transfers into my art practice, because I'm working towards Indigenous healing and showing that through the storytelling I'm doing in Indigenous comics that I've been making lately, where I'm exploring Indigenous female role models that are friends of mine and their strength and perseverance and how they've been through embracing their Indigenous culture and going to ceremony and drinking medicinal teas to heal themselves through cancer treatments and deal with very heavy grief and addictions. I think it's helped me make this really difficult work because it's made me stronger. And I think I don't make art about myself. I don't make very many self-portraits. It's seeing myself in such a large scale, so confident, seeing the beauty in myself. It was hard at first, but I think it really shows a turning point in myself, and it's really helped my work a lot.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I'm still figuring exactly how it's going to manifest and like how I'm creating my work, but it's got me excited about like seeing the scale of the portrait, and just my reaction to seeing the portrait is definitely going to inform a lot of things I do moving forward. So just the experience itself, I mean, I saw it, Laura didn't like let me see it at all until it was finished, and so I got to see it privately, which was nice, in the studio, and then, you know, there was again in the gallery, which is like a brand new experience, even though I had seen it. But yeah, seeing yourself like larger than life, and in my case, like this triplicate of, you know, of mid-motion, and, you know, being like, yeah, like kind of seeing, I don't know, seeing that movement, seeing everything like that. It's, I don't really put myself in a lot of my work, and when I have, it's still very disconnected. It's never really like this literal, more literal like interpretation of me. So yeah, and also, yeah, seeing myself in drag, so that, I guess that's also a thing. So when I'm like practicing and I'm not in drag, but I'm practicing drag things, I'm like, I can't get into it. It's kind of weird. But then, you know, when I'm in drag, like when I've got my stuff, my makeup, I'm like, yeah, like it's like this whole other version of yourself. And it's really, really cool to experience that. And then it's just like, I'm still kind of dissecting the layers of what it's like to then look at a painting of myself in drag, because just seeing yourself in a painting is one thing. So yeah, you probably all know exactly like what I'm saying, and you're like, just organize it differently in how you're speaking about it. But anyway, it's weird, right? But yeah, it's definitely really powerful. And also, like, I'll wrap it up in a sec here, but like, you know, as queer people, there's like, oh, how much space can I take up? I'm going to make myself small. As an anxious person, like, I'm going to make myself really tight and small. And then also, you know, with other things like being raised and socialized as a girl, and then now existing in space as a male presence, I'm like, okay, I need to be conscious about the space I'm taking up. And then so I'm like, I'm always having this weird internal battle. So having this beautiful portrait of me in drag, and it was just kind of I could like not think about that for a sec. I could just be like, oh, that's really nice. Yeah, thanks.
Well, we were quite struck, my partner and I, when we saw the painting, and it's very overwhelming for sure, especially like the time between doing the photo session and then the painting. A lot happened between then. But what struck me about the painting the most was my partner's gaze, and especially because the concept for the photograph was that I would be draped over her body, and that like I would be taking up most of the space, and I would be on top of her so that she was less visible. But when we saw the final product, it was her gaze is so intense that I feel that she's the main figure in and here I am like naked, like but one thing that her gaze that I've been thinking about with that is like, you know, the interplay in this image between protection and affection. And I just feel that when I'm like getting lost in bliss, and like I think that the feeling of love is like all about transcendence and like kind of this lifting and this like euphoria and all this like light descriptors. But then when I see her, I see like so much groundedness. And so there's definitely like, just like the juxtaposition of like both of our emotions and our personalities really like coming through in this gesture that was so beautifully captured.
Thank you all. I always love using Embrace as an example of the collaboration to the photo process, because you and your partner came in with the concept and of the pose, and it's truly kind of the crux of that painting and that composition, and I wouldn't have thought of to place you that way. So, you know, I love using that as an example of the collaboration. Yeah, and then for scale, obviously conceptually, for me, it was literally about taking up space as queer people in an institution, and also just the physical act of painting at that scale is something I really enjoy doing. Yeah, so it's really interesting to hear all your perspectives on that, and yeah, thank you guys.
Question. Okay, so I'm going to from large scale to sort of macro. The backgrounds now, like when I'm looking at the paintings, it's the background that kind of comes through, that seeps through your bodies, right? Like it feels like, you know, like you're looking at, you know, any one of these, and it kind of seeps right through. Was that, how did you play with that, and was that something that you articulated to all your muses sitting here?
Yeah, so from a technical standpoint, how I approach the paintings, I actually do the background first. So I'll do the entire background of the painting first and let it dry for a few days, and then the figures are painted on top. So everyone's very much emerging from the space. They're not disappearing. It's very much a, like, coming out, if you will, or emerging from the space. And yeah, in terms of the background coming through, so actually, Jessie, you were the first painting of the series, and it happened pretty organically, and that aesthetic, I realized, has been present in my work for years. And it was something I really pushed in your painting, and I just wanted to see how much I could not render, or yeah, how much of an image you could leave unrendered without, you know, like doing a hyper-realistic image. And, you know, sometimes going back, and there's never any background added on top, which I think is conceptually relevant as well. But then, yeah, after I completed that painting, it was pushed in the other pieces too, and it ended up becoming kind of the overarching aesthetic feature of the work.
It's beautiful, right? Because the background comes in, and you're just like, visually, it all works together, like that hardness and softness of each person. So we were talking about scale. I sort of missed the first question though. How has participating in this art project, so talking to the collaborators, has it changed your, like, you know, I think I put both those questions together. How has it changed your own art practice? Has it made it bigger? Has it made it smaller? Have you collaborated with each other? Has this led to other collaborations within friend groups or art groups?
Good.
Yeah, go right ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, after I gave my first answer, I was like, oh, wait, no, I want to say this. Like, after, you know, the portrait, like seeing the portrait and considering it and doing more drag, it, like, I have a lot of things that I'm working on, and, you know, getting excited about doing more drag, like, more conceptual looks and more, like, portraiture of myself and things like that. Like, I have, like, there's excitement there, and there's ideas kind of percolating. So that's something that inspired me. And I mean, scale is always tricky when I do work quite small, but yeah, I haven't really thought about how it would impact scale in my practice, since I'm just kind of doing it for me. So it's out of convenience half the time. Listen, I mean, I don't have a lot of storage, so, but either way, I'll take high definition photos so they can be blown up if it happens. So, yeah, so that, and you know what, I forgot kind of what you were asking, but it was mainly just, yeah, that is a direct thing that was impacted through that. Oh wait, I remember, through the workshop, or through the Laura's showing. I had the opportunity to work on, do a workshop with Laura. So we, you know, collaborated and it's funny, our practice, there's a lot of very opposite things in our practice and how we make art and how we do every single step in it. So it was so fun to kind of work together and collaborate on teaching a workshop. And yeah, that's something really big that I've gained out of this experience as well, is working in that way with Laura. But yeah, Laura, you could probably touch on that a bit better than I could. But
Yeah, the workshop thanks Julian, that Julian and I led, it was honestly so much fun, and it just felt like we were like back in art school, just like doing a little craft afternoon, planning it, and then when we actually executed it, it just went so well. And yeah, it was such a beautiful collaboration for me as well, Julian. Yeah.
Have other of you collaborated together to make other projects?
So, I mean, Laura and I have been collaborating from very early on into our relationship. We joke about how I'm going to be 70 and saggy, and she's still going to be painting portraits of me. Because it's one of those things where, I mean, there's a long history of the idea of a muse as an object that you basically like take what you want from to then profit yourself. And it's something that has never been a part of Laura and I's relationship. You know, like as a Black woman, my image being out there, like it's one of those things where I was like, I want to feel seen in it. I want to feel, and that is actually more so like it's defined what collaborations would or could look like, if that makes sense. That there's something I get back from it, but also there's something that I'm giving back. And that's not always something that is like an inherently like established reciprocal relationship that exists, especially for like art, like portraiture artists and that kind of thing that can happen. So it's more so affected how I think of collaboration, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I will touch on that. Yeah, thank you, Malaikah. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, over the years, I've been painting Malaikah. I think I've painted Malaikah like 15 times at this point. It's been a lot for probably the past 7 years. But yeah, that kind of give and take. And like when we do photo shoots now, all my paintings are based on photographs that I take. It's just like, we don't even have to communicate with words. It's just like, we know exactly what we want from this. And yeah, it's been such a joy to continue to build that relationship with you. And I will be painting you when you are 70 and saggy.
I guess kind of going off of that, I also work incredibly small. You know, beadwork is very meticulous and takes a long time. But with working with Laura through the Pantsuit Collective and seeing the large scale and seeing she has no fear and she doesn't let the cost hold her back and just fighting for all those grants, and it helped with my confidence to not always work so small. So I had through the generosity of the Winnipeg Art Gallery, I did a residency there and was able to do like the first huge piece I've ever done, like an 8-foot by 5-foot stretched moose hide acrylic painting in 17 days. And I think just seeing what you're capable of, it helped push me to try harder and apply for grants that I didn't think, was possible. So, and originally my comic I just finished was supposed to be this tiny little thing, but it felt like a cop-out. But, I just, with this new confidence I have, making things larger and having that space to explore, and with technique and stepping into different art mediums that I, was afraid of and couldn't afford or didn't have the space, I think you've just been a really good example and showed me so much.
You're gonna make me cry. Thank you. And you've been such an inspiration to me too. Like, you should see how hard this person works. It's unbelievable, actually, what you get done. It's unbelievable. And yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, maybe fearlessness might have something to do with it, but I guess like just kind of, yeah, approaching, being confident in yourself and not being afraid of like what you can create.
I think the thing that I'm thinking about the most with this question is the way that the image just kind of can stand on its own and the emotionality that comes through. I think that an anxiety that I have a lot of the time with art is maybe that I need to over-explain myself. I also love working in multiples, but sometimes I wonder if I'm doing that because I need to say the same thing like over and over again to get my point across. And so these are grouped together as a thematic, which I love as well, but I think that the image is just like an image that stands on its own, and that gives me more confidence, I think, to just let an image be an image, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Christina. I know what you mean too, and like I think that's part of painting as well. Like I always tell my students, the hardest part of painting is knowing when to stop. And I feel like that kind of restraint and having that confidence in your work is like something that takes a really long time to build and foster. So I could totally relate to that. Yeah.
I guess for myself, I feel like through the scale and like understanding this image of me more, I think I've been a person that's been either told like you're doing too much or having to constantly figure out if I'm carving out enough space for myself. And I feel like this image has continuously, or like giving me the confidence to always keep doing too much, because what is too much? As an artist, as a person, all those things. So it's gained this level of like also masculinity as a person who's like gender fluid in other ways, but still identifies quite feminine. It's giving me like this sense of, discovering more parts of myself that feel confident and feel good, and I don't have to, overly explain myself or have to justify things and just like show up as me and every parts of me. If it's in my arts practice, if it's me as a DJ, if it's me as a writer or wherever else, I don't have to do anything. I can just be myself. So I think this portrait is really, giving me like kind of like this badass part of myself. Sorry if I swear. Which is like fun and like almost like a performance or a character that I can always tap into. So yeah.
Thanks, Mahlet. Yeah, that's funny that you say that. So in the photo shoot, Mahlet actually, you had two outfits. Yeah. And the other outfit that Mahlet showed up in was this like blue polka dot dress with these like fluffy red heels. It was like ultra femme. And so like I love that you wanted to play with that gender dichotomy in that day. And it was very challenging to choose which image to paint of you. I mean, there were hundreds of images, but like which outfit you presented yourself in. So it's interesting to see you like reflect on that too. And I know you're like, going between masc and femme all the time, but maybe in a more femme presenting area now with just like hair length and that sort of thing. So it's tricky to, navigate that, but at the same time, something I relate to as well. And painting is so weird in that way where it just like encapsulates that moment in time, right? Like in 10 or 15 years, these paintings will be dated just by virtue of fashion or like style. And that's something I'm always thinking of too. And, you guys like choosing your clothing as well is, it's interesting how that kind of presents itself through the work.
I think the fashion is timeless. I'm just looking at all this.
No fault detected.
Agreed. That's true.
Oh, that's great. We have a few minutes here for questions from the audience. Questions from the audience? Yes. Oh, wait. Uh-oh. Jennifer's going to be the runner. Go on.
All right. Okay, who had a question? Okay.
Hello, thank you all for just sharing your perspective and how much this not only just embodies yourself in your practice, but your vulnerabilities and your willingness to have confidence. And thank you, Laura, for bringing this community to all of us. And it's hard to sometimes put yourself out there, but you've really shown your community and your friendship here, and that's quite beautiful and inspiring. Anyway, to my actual question. That's a statement, not a question. Each of you talked a little bit about how much this has grown, seeing yourself or queerness in space. How do you like to see this? Does seeing yourself in this scale and in this way, from a photograph to a transition to a painting in a medium, do you see a change in your perception of yourself, your queerness, your playfulness, and your vulnerabilities? And also, how do you want to have dialogue with people through this medium of showcasing yourself in that way?
I'll start this one off because I had a very strong reaction to seeing this painting of me when the first time I saw it. Laura had it in her apartment. She was just holding it until it came up. And I went over to her house and was not expecting it, and then walked in and then was confronted with my own gaze staring back at me in a scale that I was like, oh, is this why people get intimidated by, I had this moment where I went, that's a lot. No, and I went, okay, maybe I get it now. No, maybe. And so that was, I think I thought of myself as being very soft, very nurturing, which I am. But I think there's I feel like I looked at this and there was a moment where I was like, I feel like my mother's looking at me being like, what are you doing? and I was like, but it's me, and looking at myself. And so that was just, I think, in that transformation of being yeah, I saw the pictures of me, the photographs that were done. But those were also much broader, the crop that Laura did for my painting. These were full-scale photos when they originally were taken. I'm wearing a whole floor-length row. And so then seeing what Laura chose to focus on, the clothes that I had brought weren't a part of it anymore. And I just it was all of the accoutrements that I had brought to kind of distract from my intensity had been removed. And then it was just me facing myself in a way that felt more intense than when you look in a mirror. More it was, yeah, I had an understanding of myself that almost felt a little uncomfortable because I'm never looking at myself judging myself. I'm looking at other people being like, that was a choice. But I've never had to look into my eyes as I go, oh, okay, what are we doing over? And so, yeah, that was one of my biggest, yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's true. So Malaikah, her ostrich feather garment does extend 10, 12 feet behind her.
It was a draping.
It is opulence, and I think that intensity though is why I love painting you, because it's you just see right through people, and it's
Sorry about that, everyone.
Yeah.
Love it.
Do not apologize. No.
I think there was another part of your question too about how do you see these images, I guess, existing later on. And once seeing these images and just the collection of them, as a person who believes in archives to a certain degree, I would love to see this exist in other ways and just showcase these are the queer people at the time that were really cool looking. And yeah, no, there are more cool queer people. Yeah, no. But just like, yeah, like being painted in this type of way, and it's kind of like stamping that time in my life, because I think Laura alluded to like, and yeah, I had quite short hair. I was presenting quite masculine. I was in my bald hair, short hair era, and it was funny to look back at it and see myself now. So I think just having, this type of image of myself like captured in that time reminds me of who I was at that time and how I consistently want to grow or change in the way I like present myself. So I would just, and the fact that like living in Manitoba is quite interesting as like a Black queer person and a Black queer femme, and there isn't a lot of us. There's a strong like 30 of us sometimes. It's ever growing and changing, but it's just like knowing that these type of images will be kind of set in stone in that way is really beautiful, and I hope to see them in other ways too, and it hopefully gives people a sense of like safety and comfort too.
Any other questions? There's got to be some burning questions. Okay, here we go.
Okay, I'm just going to gush for a second here. When I walked into the space, I was just like, wow, amazing. What a beautiful collaboration. I could feel like the beauty and energy of every single one of you. Jessie, powerful, really powerful. I love your portraits so much. I guess my question is oftentimes in sort of these kind of situations, panels, where the queerness becomes like the overall arc, I'm interested in hearing you guys as creators, if that's okay. So I would love to hear from each and every one of you of how you start with your making process.
I'll start. Okay. Yeah, like for me, starting has looked different at different points in my life. And right now, starting looks like, okay, I've got my head above the water, we're doing okay. And it's just kind of kicking myself to go do it and getting excited about something, or like following, like it's like pulling a thread and unraveling something. Like I'll find something I'm particularly interested in that week and just kind of go in on it. And then it's, I'm suddenly like engaging in a big project that I'm making. And I don't know if that's just having ADHD or my, general neurodivergence, but, I really just like embrace that and let myself find that joy and pleasure, and it should never really feel like a job for me anyways. I know everyone's got a different way, but sometimes I do have to just tell myself like, hey, it's been a little while, maybe try making some art that always actually does feel really good. Right? So but yeah, sometimes just letting it organically start. That's kind of, I hope that's kind of what you were asking too. Yeah. All right. Well.
And I can use it.
Okay.
Sorry. So I'd say, because of the way that I kind of view my art practice, which is that it happens for me, and then if you get to benefit from the outward expression of that thing, good for you. But again, what I was saying, if you know, you know. If you didn't see it, you missed it, loupé. Like, it's very much that kind of place. And so for me, it always starts with a strong emotion. Usually it's a nice combination of anger and confusion. And that puts me in a place where I was like, I can't make sense of it or logic it, and then I have to kind of just express it and then look back at what I've expressed and see what that thing is to make sense of what it was I was feeling, what it was that was confusing me. And that, like, art for me is very much the place where I'm like, okay, here we don't have to have the answers, and that the fact that we're frustrated is pushing us, and we're just going to put that frustration out there. And then if we step back and look at what we've expressed, you're probably going to get some influence or input about what it was you were trying to convey. I think I do a lot of, like, after a piece, I'll go back and, like, write about that piece I did, and that, like, continues to take on thing where it's like, it is for me. And then after I do the piece, I can look back and be like, yeah, and then when this happened, and I then made this sudden performance piece decision, it was because I was feeling this burden in this specific way, and that felt like the right move to make at the time. But I had to first create, I can overthink things a lot, so I have to first create the space just to be like, it's a lot of mess, and you're just gonna put out that mess, and that's art. And then you can review it and analyze it afterwards, but that's the thing. Like, you were propelled forward because of those feelings, and that this is just the space to figure it out. Yeah.
For me, with my arts practice, I think like the one I can maybe think about is most recently I made a film. And it's like a short film, and at the time it was like almost a year ago now, but at the time I was going through a really frustrating situation, and I was just wanting to find some type of way to express those emotions and kind of like let go of it and not to carry it. And that was through, also previously before that, coming across a bunch of different clips on YouTube that I really resonated a lot, through like Maya Angelou or through a DJ set that I really loved, and looking at music videos and things, and that kind of, even though before those things had happened, I was just like kind of hyper fixated on them or ruminating in them, or like, meditating on them. And then when the things were happening, you're like, okay, how do I take all those things and borrow them and put them together? So that for me was able to say, okay, yes, I'm going through a hard time, a frustrating time. How do I push it out and kind of not have to be isolated in it? And through that film, it was a way to like let go of something and see something really beautiful come out of it, and also see other people relate to it in their own interpretations without even having to know like the things that were happening, but just through like the ways that each of the people in like the film are talking about certain subject matters, or talking about the relationship to anger as well, or the relationship to like the culture and what is culture and who has access to it, or who is the the people who make the culture. So I think for me in my creative process, that's the one where I was just like, oh, okay, I don't have to sit in this, and I don't have to be alone in it. I can express something, and it's kind of shifted and changed and molded into many different ways with the film, and it's encouraged me to now make more work out of it that doesn't have to come from anger and can come from like the joy of it, and I can actually be happy while making it and enjoy it. And I think that's a goal of me too, is like be able to make art for just joy and not for anyone else and just for me. Even though I do love that film a lot. It's really, the name of it's called Why Some People Be Mad at Me Sometimes, which I think is fitting with the subject matter or whatever. But yeah, that's my creative process.
For me, starting a body of work versus starting like a singular painting is different. So starting a body of work, it's something I want to research for a while, and obviously, figure out the concepts and spend time with those underpinnings, and then, kind of approach an overarching narrative. And then, starting a painting, like technically, I'll do several studies, and obviously start with the photographs. So I do various studies. If you go in my studio, you'll have all seen there's just like a wall of faces that are, just kind of on canvas paper studies. So, you really want to know, you want to have everything kind of figured out before you start a painting, like a 10-foot painting. You want to make sure it turns out. So that's definitely very much a part of the process. And then, it's again, just like, with painting you guys, it's something I'm always thinking of as like kind of all the experiences we've had together while I'm painting you. It's like hard, obviously, not to think of you while I'm doing that process. So that's very much a part of it too. And I feel like I relate to everything that the three of you have said so far. So it's so interesting how that can be interchangeable across mediums and experiences and practices. Mm-hmm.
I think I have a lot of similarities in the way that I create to Laura, but then some of it is just like purely eureka moments. Like I'll be like half asleep at 2 a.m. and I'm like, I'm gonna make an Indigenous comic, and I'm like, my husband's like, calm down. You do realize how much work that is. but I'm like, well, I'm enjoying working with community so much, working with, I teach so many students around Winnipeg, beading and mural making, And then I just know so many strong Indigenous female role models that I've met throughout the years, and knowledge keepers and good friends. So taking that leap into storytelling through a comic isn't that weird for me. I think I was kind of getting stuck up in the fact, yes, I can make a mixed media piece or just a painting, but just that static image in a gallery space, it doesn't get far beyond the gallery space. Yes, you can, exhibit it far and wide, but there's just a lot of audience, like my intended audience, like Indigenous youth and Indigenous, adults and young Indigenous artists. They might not necessarily be in that gallery space or know about it. I've run into so many youth that are like, I don't know what an art opening is. So I'm trying to explain that to them, and that it's free and when it happens. But then when this comic series I'm doing is finished, I hope to get it printed into a book and hand it out for free to a lot of different places and schools around Winnipeg, give copies to the women that have participated for them to share that joy and share it with their families. And then it'll just live on past the gallery space. I think that's really important for me. And my process has become really experimental, very calculated still, because I've never done comic making before previous to this, so I was watching YouTube and I'm like, oh, that's superhero stuff. That's not what I'm trying to do. It's more of like a biopic of their lives, but exploring their strength and perseverance. Using the 7 sacred teachings while going through cancer treatment, but like I might do a mixed media piece like The Wolf, you might have seen, but that'll take like 4 months of experiment, or it'll be like, okay, I'm going to add a ribbon section here, I'm going to embroider here. It's not all laid out what it's going to look like beforehand. It just kind of organically builds. Some of it'll be laid out beforehand, but then as I'm working on it, I take my time and it just continues to grow, and then I have to know when to stop. That's the thing. Yeah, where I'm like, oh, I want to add this more thing. No. But, I think, just experimenting, and then is really where I've been finding joy, and then using my own reference material, taking my own photos like Laura does, has become like a beautiful part of the process, and like connecting with the people that you're working with, and that authenticity, that you just can't grasp from looking around on Google and trying to capture what you want to capture.
Yeah.
This one's, I feel like I don't know where a project starts and ends. It's very driven by diasporic narratives, and so therefore my family is very involved in my work, and there's this like back and forth between trying to feel more grounded in my own story and context for being here, being all the things that I am. And so it's like a very individual process, but then it also is very related to like asking my mom questions about Lebanon, about immigration, about food and different things that I can then bring back to my work in a more material way. But then through my practice, there's been a very interesting process of like, that like disillusionment that happens, like of feeling like everything my mom said was facts, like this is Lebanon, and now it's like, oh, like it's much bigger than that. And so obviously a huge part of it is research, but it's also just kind of like the back and forth, because then I bring that research to her. Like, for example, let's watch this documentary about the Lebanese Civil War, Mom. And then she's like very excited to do it. And I asked her if I could record it so that I could just get the audio of her reactions to us watching it together. And then I took that audio and put it into a film that I was working on. And I didn't know what the audio was, what the point of it was, until later. So I think there's like pieces of projects kind of floating everywhere. And a huge motivator for that is just talking to my mom, trying to look at the slipperiness of the disconnection between generations, between like being a first-gen daughter and then having like an immigrant mother, and trying to not feel so lost in who I am. And so language and translation becomes a big inspiration as well for my work. And there was a collage right before these 3 images, and there was Arabic text on it that says "Taberne," and I grew up hearing this term of endearment from my mom growing up, but it was only when I started to try to learn Arabic in a legit way, since I guess like the last 5 years, that I realized how much I actually don't know, because my mom speaks to me in a mix of Arabic and English, and I didn't realize how much I was just kind of inferring. And so anyways, that phrase is a term of endearment, but I actually didn't know what it meant until I went to an Arab gathering in Detroit, and we were talking about terms of endearment, and the word "ghanouj" came up, and I thought that it meant that my mom thought I was like, I don't know, like, it's like a cutie girl, like "ghanouj," it's like whiny or something. But anyways, the other beautiful people in the room told me it means spoiled brat. So, so I made art about that word. And then "Taberne," I realized on that same trip as well, it means like, I hope I die before you, because I couldn't stand to live without you. And I'm like, that's how you say I love you? Like, I had no idea that's what you were saying to me. So then it became a collage, because I wanted to think about cultural transference and the shifting of like familial love to romantic love, and how then I started using that phrase with my partner. So that's what that collage is about. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just going to use the handheld mic. You were in my class. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, my class is here. Did you hear that? That was great, right? Yeah, because we just talked about... Sorry, I'm laughing into the mic. We just talked about location in the critical race and Indigenous feminism class just before coming down here, talking about how one locates oneself and what does that look like in terms of race, in terms of gender, but also going back to family. And so that I feel like that what you just said, Sharon, encapsulates that. I'm a maker too, you know. Can I answer this question too? Is that okay? Yeah. Can I do that? Okay. If the panel agrees, okay, great. I actually was asked this question, last week, and I write poetry sometimes. I forget sometimes that I'm a poet, and I've got 2 books. But I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be great to be a poet? And then I'm like, wait a minute, Ruprai, you are one. Like, you've got 2 books. But that just means the 3rd book is here. It's, you know, and so what I like to do is I start gathering. I collect the next book in a box. And I just things that are just gonna, I'm like, you know what, this is an inspiration, this is something. And then all of a sudden I have this box full of stuff, because honestly I don't have a lot of time. I'm chair of the department, it's lots busy. Okay. But then I have to carve out time so that I can go through that. But something that was in there, like a word or a phrase or like a Post-it note, I write something quickly on there and I throw it in there. I'm like, that, and then I'm like, magically, like magic, that's going to turn into a poetry book. And so it's like a magic little thing that happens, and then I get 3 weeks to just like figure it out, and then poof, it comes into a book. That's how I make. That's how I make. I would like to thank everyone for coming. Thank you for participating. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you to the panel. Absolutely wonderful to see you all here again after the opening, which was a couple of weeks ago. Everyone has a bit more time to see the show until... Oh. Why did I think it was the 21st? I lie. Run downstairs right now. No, it's only for tomorrow. So walk through, get your 10,000 steps, go through it again. And thank you so much for all your thoughts and insights and in-betweenness. And, you know, this panel makes you feel like, oh my God, they're so cool. But you know what? All your friends are just as cool and doing amazing, amazing work. And I say collaborate. Keep collaborating with everyone. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for that.